Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the channel. This is Excoundrel, and we are doing a pretty big video today. We're going to be looking at all of the comps that are pretty viable. It's not going to encompass every single comp in the world. I just want to put that out there before we start. This isn't going to be every single comp you can play in TFT right now, because frankly, with champion augments, there is so many comps that you can actually play. But I'm going to give you 10 to 11 comps that are good, will get you wins, and in the right circumstances will result in a strong finish if you get the right items and the right units. This video is going to be split up into as follows. Timestamps in the description below, and every single comp that I show you will have a link to a tactics.tool team builder where you can look at it in more detail. All of those will be in the description below. And also, before we start, thanks to G2A for sponsoring the channel. There is a reference link in the description below. Now, let's kick off with the first comp. I don't want to waste any more of your time. This is the Samira comp. Now, Sure Shot got nerfed, Samira got nerfed, Set got nerfed. All of that should equal, this is now a bad comp, but it's not. The reason being, Aphelios got buffed, and if you can get Aphelios on the board, he is very strong right now, and so it's still a good comp to place with. I think they also bug fixed Samira, so her ult is a lot more reliable now, and that actually compensates for some of the damage nerfs that she got. So there are two versions of the Samira comp. There is the Samira Civilian Aegis version, and then there is the Samira Set version, which I'm sure a lot of you will be very sort of comfortable and aware of. The Samira Set version is exactly like it was in the last patch. You're looking for Set with, obviously, Wukong and Jax, or Wukong and Leona, depending on what you find. You're then looking for Samira and another Sure Shot to backline with. That could be Aphelios, but that also could obviously be Sivir or Senna. I would recommend Sivir because she has healing, which is good for Set. But Aphelios, obviously, really, really good in the current meta, so you can replace the Sivir out unless you've got something like Endless Pizza. Other than that, you can then go towards more Sure Shots, so you can get Urgot and Fiddlesticks to be Senna and Sivir, and that's obviously good as well. Or you can go for the Urgot and Fiddlesticks version that you see here below. They're both still very strong 5 costs and good in the right circumstance. The core of the comp is Samira, Set Mech, plus another Sure Shot. Anything else is dependent on the situation. The Civilian Aegis version is the version that was popular before Set, and that is Samira plus another Sure Shot with an Echo, Galio, Sejuani, and Alistair frontline to give you Aegis, Mascot, a good Sejuani tank, a good Echo tank. And then you can either go for Sure Shot, like you see in the version above you, or you can add a Vi-in for another Aegis, and again, tech in random legendaries like a Fiddlesticks or an Urgot. It really depends what you find, and really depends what the situation calls for. In terms of early transition to this, you're looking for defenders plus any kind of AD item holders. AD item holders are people like Vayne, Kayle, Ashe, all those types of good people. They are the people that will hold your items very nicely that you can then transfer over to Samira. A lot of people like to put things on Sivir because she's an early 2 cost, or on Senna because Senna is a great carry, and then you eventually transfer them over to Samira once you find her. Boom! Let's go to the next comp. A comp that was also very popular in the last patch that's going to remain very popular on this patch is Ox Force Renegade, or the Viego comp. This is a comp that you can build right from level 1. Talon, Camille, Silas. 3 Renegades. Talon holds your Viego items, and the items that you really want on Talon early on are Ionic Spark, and then either Rabadon's Deathcap or Jeweled Gauntlet. The stats actually point towards Rabadon's Deathcap being a better item, but Jeweled Gauntlet is also perfectly fine. You then essentially build Ox Force up, so add in an Alistair, add in an Annie, and then you go towards the comp that you see on your screen here. 6 Ox Force, and then as many Renegades as you can fit in. Of course, you would love to go for more Renegades, but you do need a Renegade spat to get there. But with 6 Ox Force, you need the Aphelios, and obviously he then can also be a secondary carry. You can itemize him because he's very strong in the current meta. In terms of the weapon that you use for Aphelios, Infernum is been buffed heavily, and so I think it's a really good option if you have any items to put on Aphelios. If you don't have items to put on Aphelios, I would still recommend that you go for Graviton. And generally, you just frontline everything, because with Viego, he just jumps everywhere anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I think a lot of people like Hextech Gunblade on him because he can help keep some of your Ox Force topped up, especially when they get dropped to low HP. Next, this is an interesting new composition that was always okay, but was never really good enough to like top 4, and that is a Threats Aurelion Sol Bel'Veth comp. Aurelion Sol got buffed, and Bel'Veth got buffed. Obviously, you're looking for threat level maximum, if you can find it. That's a fantastic augment to have here. And then you're just looking for Rammus tank, Cho'Gath tank, Zac tank, Vel'Koz and Aurelion Sol. Vel'Koz has got a good individual lockdown. Aurelion Sol obviously has just been buffed and is great. Again, there's loads of augments that you can pick up for this as well. And I think threat champion augments are some of the easiest to find in the game, so you can usually always guarantee yourself a good augment in this scenario. Bel'Veth, Infinity Edge for critting on her ability, Bloodthirster for lifesteal, or Hextech Gunblade is fine as well, and then obviously Last Whisper to help get through sort of beefy defender front lines. I imagine with the set nerf, we're going to see less defender, so, you know, Last Whisper might become less relevant in this patch, but we'll see. Other than that, it's literally stick every single threat you can possibly find onto the board. You can transition out of anything into threats. It just means you just have to find the threats. I think picking up Rammuses and Cho'Gaths early as you find them is good, because then you can go towards Kai'Sa, Vayne, and then you don't have to commit items super early on. You can commit Rammus items if you want to, and then if you can't find the Kai'Sa and the Vayne, you end up finding things like Aurelion Sol and Bel'Veth. Boom. The only problem with this threat comp is you kind of really need to luck into some forecasts to get it. You know, if you're relying on getting to level 7 and level 8 and then transitioning to this, it's a little harder to do. You have to have a good kind of like backline carry, like a Vayne plus Kai'Sa, to carry those items for Bel'Veth to make it worth it. LaserCorps, still a good comp, believe it or not. And it's built pretty much the same way. Again, another comp that you can build straight from level 1. Ashe, Renekton, Yasuo, or Ashe, Renekton, Senna, whatever you find. You get 3 laser comps, you get a double brawler frontline, and you are set up for success. That's essentially where you go with this comp. And it's very strong. Zed's a good carry. You can go. I really do recommend the one item that two items that I think are core on Zed: Edge of Night, so you can drop aggro, and second, Runan's Hurricane. Runan's Hurricane makes Zed much more effective at killing multiple targets. He's a very good single target killer, but obviously can get a little bit struck down when he's got lots of opponents to take down. So I actually really like Runan's Hurricane. Then you just essentially transition upwards. You replace whatever brawler you had for Sejuani. You're then going to keep Ashe in until you find Mordekaiser, and then you add whatever else you can. Zoe for Hacker, Fiddlesticks, or you can go LeBlanc for the third Hacker as well. This is a great comp. It will very easily top 4. Even though it got nerfed in the last patch, it's still really strong. This is Kai'Sa Threats. I still think one of the best comps in the game. I have a video coming out tomorrow of me playing this to show you how I kind of transitioned with this comp, but this to me is the peak version of the comp. You have Nilah and Echo and Kai'Sa for Star Guardians. You've got Nilah and Vayne to have the Duelists in. You've got Rammus and Cho'Gath, obviously, to act as your major tanks. You don't need Ashe if you have a Recon Heart. If you have Recon Heart or even Recon Spat, you can put Recon Spat on Bel'Veth. You can put a random legendary in if you find one in place of Ashe, or you put a Zac in for extra frontline in place of Ashe if you have the Recon Heart or any of the Recon augments. This comp is a little different. You want to be level 7, and then you want to kind of like slow roll or even roll down, depending on how many copies you have of Cho'Gath, Rammus, and Kai'Sa. Vayne, I would never usually recommend to try and compete for a 3-star with. The reason being is Vayne is very popular in Duelists, and Duelists is still pretty strong right now. So I think Kai'Sa is your better 3-star option, depending on which items you get. However, you can very easily play Carry Vayne in this comp. The only problem I see with Carry Vayne is that she doesn't have a self-attack speed steroid like Kai'Sa does. And so Vayne without Duelists, her DPS, in my opinion, is rather limited. So it's better to go for Kai'Sa. I actually also think this comp is very easy to play Rising Spellforce Ezreal in. So if you're playing Rising Spellforce Ezreal, this is also a very good comp to play him in, and you can play him with carry items as well. This is the Zoe Hearts comp. Now, Zoe can be played in lots of different comps right now, but I really like Zoe in a Hearts comp for 2 reasons. It generates more AP for her, and also you've got a pretty strong, sturdy frontline in the Hearts comp with Annie, Alistair, and Echo. And this is what the Hearts comp looks like. You've got Zoe. If you can find a Heart spat for her, definitely give it to her, probably in place of the Morella Nomicon. Blue buff is an absolute must, and I really love Hextech Gunblade on her because she generates a load of healing for someone, and especially if that's good for Annie if you've got good tank items on her. Freddy, what's going on? Sorry, my dog's decided to come and scratch something behind me for some reason. This comp, you just basically want as many tiers as possible. You're looking for blue buff on Soraka, blue buff on Sona. You can play Sona carry if you get the right augment. It's very flexible. But, you know, I want to reiterate, Zoe is a really good carry right now, and she can form the primary carry in this comp. You don't need to make Soraka the primary carry. Remember, as long as you just have blue buffs and these people can cast, everyone gets AP. So Zoe is a good target because the more AP you give her, the more damage over time she stacks up and she becomes very powerful. So this is a good comp. In terms of transitioning into this early, you can go spell slingers early, so like have a Lux in with the items that you're going to hold for Zoe, or even a LeBlanc. And then as soon as you hit Zoe, whack blue buff on her, and she can actually be, she's really strong, really strong in the mid game. If you're lucky enough to find Zoe early and you can put a blue buff on her, she can basically single-handedly carry in stage 2. So she's very good in that respect. I actually find AP comps some of the hardest to transition into, believe it or not. You know, it's difficult to have, there aren't that many good early AP item holders. Ezreal is decent, Lux is decent, Lulu is okay. There are much better AD item holders early on than there are AP item holders. However, if you can get through that mid game, especially if you're just going to run like Annie plus Alistair frontline for a little bit, just to have the Ox Force there, you know, it's still it's a really good comp and definitely works super well. So yeah, I love this comp and I love Zoe as a carry right now. This is the Draven Mech comp. Now, Mecha got nerfed, obviously, and also supers have been previously nerfed. However, Draven himself got buffed. Now, this is a good comp, but I would add it with a warning. It's very difficult to stabilize this comp unless you have perfect items Draven and you have a 3-star Draven. So this comp is obviously a slow roll on 6 situation because you want to hit Draven 2-star, 3-star, Lee Sin 3-star, and Malphite 3-star. If you don't hit the 3-stars in this comp, you'll find that you'll die very quickly. So I wouldn't recommend that you go for this unless you hit sorry. Unless you hit a good Draven augment and you get an early 2-star Draven and you're pretty strong early. If you're trying to come into this off a lose streak and you whiff, you will just go fast 8th. So it's a very difficult comp to make work. You don't need to run Set and Leona either. You could give your tank items over to Lee Sin or Malphite, and then you could add some mascots in there, or you could add some random legendaries. It's whatever you feel like. But obviously the ultimate Mecha Prime is going to make Draven very strong. But yeah, definitely hard to transition into, and it's a comp that will definitely punish you if you don't hit the right stuff. It's not something that I think that you can easily hard force. There are people that do it, but they're much better players and they've had a lot of experience with it. You know, trying to hard force this without the experience is quite difficult, I think, because it's not a comp that easily stabilizes if you don't have a really good front line. Draven requires a lot of 3-stars to get him into a point where he feels unkillable, and especially, you know, in augment as well. This is Taliyah. She is back, everyone. Yes, Taliyah back with a vengeance. The 5-star Guardian version is the preferred if you can find Syndra. Obviously, you can run... who else can you run over Syndra? I need to just figure... You can run like Nilah or Yuumi. Sorry, Yuumi's already there. Kai'Sa. Any of the other Star Guardians you can run if you don't find the Syndra early on. But the Star Guardian version is better because you want Taliyah to cast as much as physically possible. Also, you notice that I put a couple of the augments. You might have noticed in the video, I put a couple of the augments for each comp that you can see, some good augments that work. Obviously, there are loads of augments that can work for these comps. I'm just selecting a few that I think are good. For this comp, again, AP comps can be quite hard to transition into. Annie 2-star early on is going to help you save a lot of HP. And then adding in an Alistair, even just running mascots early on for the Annie, so Alistair plus a Galio or something like that. I really like Galio because he gives you civilians, so you can kind of have Galio, Alistair, Annie as your front line, and then just run whatever AP you can until you find Taliyah. Good Taliyah item holders are people like LeBlanc, for instance, so you can definitely put LeBlanc in there. She's a good item holder for Taliyah. But this is kind of like what a level 8 board would look like for a Taliyah comp, and then maxing it out, you can add in either a prankster, so you can add sort of a Zoe in for prankster and Echo, or you can add just a random legendary if you like to. But having a stacked board or a stacked bench is good for Syndra. So yeah, good to go down that route. Duelists. Duelists still strong. And Vayne carry or Zed carry are both perfectly viable. You know, both use very similar items, so really depends on what you find. This is a comp that, again, you can play from the very outset. So, with Duelists, you want to just run Fiora, Gangplank, Kayle, Yasuo. You've got 4 Duelists early on. That is super strong, especially if you can 2-star some of them. You add a random or a Nilah in there as well, and suddenly you've got a load of healing for your front line. It's a comp that if you find 4 Duelists early on, 6 Duelists in the mid-game, you're going to stabilize really easily. You're looking for Zed to either be your carry, and you want to add a Zoe in there to give you the hacker rim, or you're looking for Vayne to be your carry. To really pop off with Vayne, you kind of want it to be 3-star, so, you know, and spread shot as well, because spread shot would give you the best Vayne carry options. and you don't actually need to run Zoe. You could run a Recon instead if you're running Vayne carry. It really depends on what you find. But Zed is obviously the easiest carry to hit because you just need him 2-star. And in Duelists, obviously, he's super strong and can pop off very quickly. So Duelists, same as they were in the last patch, still really good. Yuumi, she's back. Now, this is what we call the Chinese Yuumi comp, just because I think it was very popular on the Chinese servers. This is kind of like a Star Guardian, Nilah being your primary kind of tank and healer here. And then you just kind of put Yuumi very, very close up to the front line, so she benefits from the healing of Nilah. That sounds a bit odd, I know. Everyone's very susceptible, like the whole team can be very susceptible to CC, which is difficult. But you're supposed to kind of out-sustain with Mascot and with Yuumi. Obviously, if you get to, this is level 7, if you get to level 8, you kind of want to add another Mascot into, oh my goodness, what have I just done to the screen? Oh, it's because I was trying to do it. You want to add another Mascot into it, and adding in Nunu's obviously the best option. So this is kind of what your Cat level 8 board will look like. Nilah gives you a load of healing with Redemption and also her ability. You have Yuumi generating a load of mana because of Star Guardian. Echo will buy you some time. Lee Sin will buy you some time. Malphite will buy you some time. This is the new Yuumi composition. You can build it very similarly to the old Yuumi composition. The problem with Yuumi, and the problem with Yuumi that always has been, is that it's usually a lose streak comp. You still need to slow roll on level 5 and 6 to get your 2-cost 3-stars and your Gangplank to 3-star. The only benefit is you don't necessarily need Galio 3-star in this comp, so it's not the worst in the world. But it is a difficult comp to make work if you don't naturally hit the right things. And if you don't get your 3-stars, probably by the end of stage 3, you're not going to be in a super strong spot. This board on a 2-star cap is not going to do it for you. You do really need the 3-stars to make it work. So very much like the old Yuumi comp, you need the 3-stars to stabilize. Luckily, not many people going for Yuumi on the current patch, so usually you're going to find it's less contested. So if it's less contested, you're more likely to hit. And supers as well, really only being used in the Draven comp and sometimes in Lulu and Ezreal right now. But yeah, supers a little bit less contested overall. Finally, Jax is back. Jax and Brawlers have had a buff in the last mini patch and also patch. I need to add the items onto Soraka because I forgot to do that. So, same as it was previously, and you build it right out of the gates. You just pick up every brawler that you can. As soon as you hit a Jax, you slam the items on him. Sejuani or Riven are your tanks, and then you obviously add a Soraka. If you've got a brawler heart, you add in Renekton, and then you go for 8 brawlers at level 8. If not, add in an Urgot or a Fiddlesticks or whatever you want to, a splash unit that's going to help you out, and that is your comp. It's very simple to play. You need, in my opinion, Rapid Fire Cannon and Ginsu's are the absolute must. I haven't added any augments here. That's my bad. So, Evasion is good. And then, is Reverberation the shield one? No, Reverberation is not the shield one. I forgot to add augments, guys. Where's the other Jax one's okay. I quite like having the shield one from the Riven, wherever it is. Whatever, the Riven support augment. And in terms of, you really want either Brawler Heart or Brawler Crest. And actually, Battle Mage is good for this comp as well. So, that is kind of some of the augments that work for this comp. It's really easy to build out the gates, super, super viable, and yeah, I recommend that you give it a go. And that is pretty much the majority of the comps that you're going to end up seeing on this patch. There are maybe a few that I missed, but this is a good starting place, and hopefully it'll give you guys some ideas on what to play on patch 13.1c. You might wonder where Miss Fortune is. She actually got nerfed really hard. Now, Miss Fortune is good, and she probably can still be played, but she's significantly weaker than she was. Ace boards, obviously, still very strong. If you can get a 4-capped ace board, they haven't changed the threshold of the executes on the ace, but obviously it's a little harder to get there now because Miss Fortune's been nerfed and Samira's been nerfed, so you can't easily stabilize or as easily stabilize as you was able to previously. But ace is still a very viable trait that you can play around if you want to. I would recommend, if you want to play the ace board, you do it on a set Samira board, and then you just find the Miss Fortune, the Draven, and the Mordekaiser. If you find the Mordekaiser, boom, try and go for 4 ace, perfectly viable. But yeah, there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know what you thought. If it's been helpful for you, I'd really appreciate a comment, a like, and a subscribe. That would be awesome, guys. Cool. See you soon.